well, my experience with the clinic from the moment that I collapsed on the floor, like I thought I died. Like I thought I died. And this is, a moment in the film where it's like, the only reason I had been so sick for so long that I was like, I didn't even know what was real or not anymore. It was I thought I was walking. Well, I still don't know what's real and what's not, but it's like,
no one does.
No one does, right?
We're all in the Matrix.
But honestly, there were days where I didn't know if I was still on the couch or if I was out getting the mail or if I was trying to drive. Like, it was like just being on terrible drugs. And I never knew where I was or what was going on. And at my very weakest, sickest, most horrible point, I was walking to my kitchen and I was so dehydrated and I was just shaking with like fatigue and illness. And I just wanted water and I got really dizzy and I collapsed. And I make the joke, right? Because when it gets serious, I bring in the humor. And it's like, the only reason when I opened my eyes on the floor, I knew I was not dead is because I had an IKEA baker's rack in my hand. And I'm like, wouldn't have taken this with me to whichever place I'm going to. But so then I was like, all right, I'm good. And I just remember the feel of the cold steel is what like kept me awake.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that moment right there where I started to get better, because it's when I stopped allowing there to be any alternative. So in that moment, I think everyone who heals comes to this moment where they're like, there is no past, there is no future. I am on a floor holding a baker's rack and I'm removing myself from the equation. What's next? Who's listening? What's next? So how many times I've said this sentence, I crawled to my computer and I typed how I cured my Lyme disease, because like you said at the beginning, I didn't want to manage it. I didn't want to, cope with it. I didn't want to treat it. I wanted to obliterate it. Mm-hmm. And, there's that ferocious thing in me that's like, oh, I'm going to do this, But at that moment, I wasn't fist holy and shaking the fists. I was like, okay, I allow it. I allow this to happen now. And that's when I crawled to my computer, and that's when I found Ben. And for people listening, that's Ben Aarons, and his TED Talk is what led me to NYCIM. And it was when I met Dr. Schultz, in the way that I met Dr. Schultz, that, sometimes I wonder if how he connects with each patient differently. And my conversations with him were so unique. But when I sat across from him, I was like, this is a person, first of all, not a doctor, even though he is a doctor. This is a person who could be sitting at the dinner table with my parents at a holiday, chatting, who sees past everything that's wrong with me into what's right with me. And all of his language comes from a place of human connectedness. And you can just feel that sitting there. So I don't know if other people who stumble into his office sweating and dizzy are aware of that presence, but it connected to the same thing in me that has the ability to heal people. And that's, for me, music and art and creativity, right? So again, like we were talking before, whatever your place is in this world, his happens to be, in the lab or in the research room and with the patient. And so when the healer in him connected to the healer in me, I was like, oh, there's no other route but to heal, because it just reflected. And that's something that occurs throughout all of Limelight Journey through the film is I learned to recognize what I call glitter in the film. And I didn't realize, again, like the theme of light throughout this whole thing really started to present itself in creepy, crazy ways, where I'd like walk in somewhere and suddenly a shutter would blast open and light would shine. I'm like, did someone plan that? And weird things started happening where it was just these magical, movie-based lighting trick things that no one was doing. And it happens with people. So all of the decisions that I made, right? All of the things that I paid attention to, adhered to, followed, were shining. They were shining. They weren't smudgy or buried or diluted. I paid attention to the things that glowed. And that's how I got back to my glowy self, is because I just followed the glitter trail. And, sitting across from Dr. Schultz, that was number one. And it was also, there's no hierarchy of patient doctor. It was human, like being. And that's why it's so difficult for any doctor or any healer or any teacher. I teach, and it's like, to train anyone to do what you do is completely impossible, because it's often the essence of the human that is doing the teaching. It's the essence of the doctor that is doing the healing. And, just like we know from all the work at Innovative, it's the essence of the food that's doing the nourishing. It's the essence of things that actually make the difference, tell the story, heal the disease. It's essence. And that's where almost everyone and everything missed the boat, right? It's the essence. And so I knew sitting there that was reflecting in me. And I knew, from when I found Ben, that reflected in me. And I was like, oh, I have this essence that all these other people have. And I'm going to follow that, because they're doing this and they're doing this and they're doing this. And it was less about what they were doing, but how it was coming across. And that doesn't mean that everyone's going to feel the same way about those people. Somebody could watch a TED Talk that you watch and be like, what the hell was that about? No, and then get something out of a Tom and Jerry cartoon that changes their life, So it's like, you hear what you hear when you need to hear it. And your vibration can only vibe where it's at with what is in its field, right? And so when we open ourselves up and we open up our ears and our heart and our vibration, that's when we enter grace and are lifted and can hear things,